The music started at exactly 3:47 p.m. Pachelbel's Canon in D, the version Izzy had spent 6 months selecting because Sebastian's mother had requested something traditional, something classic, something that says our family has taste, and Izzy, being Izzy, had spent 47 hours researching wedding music history to find the exact piece that would satisfy a woman who had made it clear in 20 separate meetings that she considered Izzy perfectly adequate as a future daughter-in-law. The string quartet was in position. The 300 guests were seated in their white chairs on the lawn overlooking the vineyard. The flowers were perfect white roses and baby's breath, thousands of them costing more than Izzy made in a year. The fairy lights were strung between the ancient oak trees that had been growing on this land since before the United States existed. And Izzy Rossi was standing at the back of the crowd, tablet in hand, checklist completed, every detail perfect, feeling the strange mix of pride and exhaustion that came from creating something beautiful for someone who didn't love her. She should have known. She should have seen the signs. The late nights when Sebastian worked late at the office, the perfume on his collars, that wasn't hers. The way Victoria Ashworth looked at her during the rehearsal dinner, not with jealousy, but with a smug certainty of a hunter who had already captured her prey. But Izzy had believed him, believed the proposal on bended knee in this very vineyard 6 months ago, when had slipped her grandmother's ring onto her finger and promised to love her until the last grape is harvested. Believed the way he had held her hand during the tastings, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, while Gabriel Chen watched from across the room with an expression she hadn't understood then but recognized now, in hindsight, as longing. She should have known. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart, if you've ever given everything to someone who decided it wasn't enough, then subscribe to Crimson Whispers. We tell stories about people who refuse to stay broken, people who take the pieces of their shattered lives and build something stronger, something beautiful, something that lasts. The processional began. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle in their sage green dresses. Izzy had chosen the color to complement the vineyard. Sebastian's mother had changed it to champagne without asking, and Izzy had smiled and said nothing because that was what she did. She made things work. She smoothed over conflicts. She disappeared herself so that other people could shine. The flower girl scattered petals. The ring bearer carried the pillows wrong size. Victoria had insisted on larger ones. Izzy had fixed it at 2 a.m. the night before. And then the music shifted to the wedding march, and everyone stood, and Izzy felt her heart start to pound against her ribs with a rhythm that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with dread. Because Sebastian was standing at the altar, and he didn't look happy. He looked like a man who was about to vomit. He caught her eye across the crowd. For 1 second, their gazes locked, and she saw it there. The truth she had been ignoring for months, the guilt, the desperation, the calculation, and underneath it all, the cold, hard fact that Sebastian Sterling had never loved her, had wanted the Rossi connection, the vineyard, the land, the old money credibility that would help his family's failing business empire, had wanted her grandfather's legacy. And when Victoria Ashworth, a woman whose family was worth 12 times what the Sterlings were, had made it clear that she could provide all of that and more, plus a guaranteed heir within 2 years, well, Sebastian had made his choice. The music stopped, not gradually, not with a fade-out. It stopped like someone had ripped the needle off the record, and 300 people gasped in the sudden silence. Sebastian stepped forward from the altar. His face was pale, his jaw tight, and when he reached out and took Izzy's hands, her hands, which had spent 6 months planning this day, which held a timeline for every vendor and the seating chart for every guest, and the backup plan for rain, held them like they were burning him. Izzy. His voice cracked on her name. I can't do this. The silence that followed was so complete that Izzy could hear her own heartbeat, could hear the wind in the grapevines, could hear Victoria Ashworth's high, delighted laugh from somewhere near the back of the crowd. I'm sorry. Sebastian continued, and his voice was steady now, rehearsed, practiced. I've met someone else. Someone who can actually give me the life I deserve. He dropped her hands, turned, walked down the aisle toward Victoria, who was waiting with smiles so triumphant it should have been illegal, took her hand, and they walked out together, leaving Izzy standing alone at the altar in front of 300 people, in the wedding she had spent 6 months of her life creating on the land that her grandfather had bought with his life savings, in the home that belonged to her, The first tear fell at 3:49 p.m. She didn't wipe it away. The whispers started at 3:51 p.m. Low at first, then louder, spreading to the crowd like wildfire. Phones rose. Cameras flashed. Someone she thought it might have been Sebastian's aunt, but she couldn't see through the blur of tears laughed. Actually laughed, high and ugly and broken. Maggie O'Malley tried to get to her. The head catering manager pushed through the crowd, face red with fury, mouth open in a yell that Izzy couldn't hear over the sudden roar of speculation and scandal, but she saw Maggie's lips form the words, "It'll kill him. I swear to God it'll kill him," before security grabbed her arms and hauled her back. Izzy stood there for another 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Time had become unreliable, stretchy, like taffy being pulled too thin. Then she turned, walked back down the aisle, the same aisle she had walked down 1,000 times in her imagination, but never like this, never as a jilted bride, never as a fool who believed in happily ever after. She made it to the service entrance before her legs gave out, slid down the wall, sat on the cold stone floor with her head in her hands. Tablet still clutched to her chest, wedding binder still open to the timeline page that said 3:47 p.m. processional begins. She sat there for 11 minutes, cried until there were no tears left, until her headache was a physical thing pounding behind her eyes, until the numbness settled in, cold and clean and familiar. Then she stood up, brushed off her pantsuit, straightened her spine, and walked back into the ballroom where the wedding reception was already starting without her, because she owned this place, damn it, and she wasn't going to let them ruin her grandfather's legacy with their tacky drama. Who do you think Izzy really is? Drop your wildest theories in the comments. I guarantee 95 of you are wrong. And if you've ever had your heart broken by someone who chose money over love, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community of people who refuse to stay invisible, and this story is just getting started. The safe was hidden under a loose floorboard in her apartment, a small apartment above the Vineyard offices that she rented for $1 per month, technically from herself, because she owned the building, and it was easier to keep up appearances if there was a lease agreement on file. She had lived here for 3 years, ever since her grandfather died, and left her the Villa Rosa estate in his will with conditions, with requirements, with a timeline, with a clause that said she had to prove herself worthy of inheriting it, not just receive it as a birthright. 3 years of working as a wedding planner. 3 years of watching Sebastian court her for access to the vineyard. 3 years of pretending to be someone she wasn't, poor, struggling, grateful for scraps from tables that should have been set for her. She opened the safe, pulled out the leather portfolio, read the deed again for the 100th time, probably, but this time it felt different. This time, the clause that had seemed like a formality suddenly felt like a weapon. In the event that any person or entity attempts to acquire, defraud, damage, or legally transfer any portion of the Villa Rosa estate through false pretenses, forged documents, bribery, coercion, or any other unlawful means, full and immediate ownership shall revert to senior Rossi heir, who shall have absolute authority to terminate all contracts, evict all occupants, pursue criminal charges, and restore the property to its rightful state. Sebastian's family had been trying to buy Villa Rosa for years. Not openly, he'd made offers through intermediaries, shell companies, anonymous bids that Izzy had rejected because she knew what they really wanted to land on the vines, which sat on top of a limestone aquifer that bottling companies would pay billions for. They wanted to strip mine her grandfather's legacy, sell the water rights, destroy the vineyard that had been producing award-winning wine for 4 generations. And when Shed refused to sell, when Shed blocked every attempt, exposed every bribe, filed complaints with the zoning board, that's when Sebastian had been sent to seduce her, to marry her, to gain control of the estate through marriage laws that would give him half of everything once they were wed. It hadn't worked because she had been too careful, too suspicious, because she had grown up in this world, and she knew how these people operated. But she had let herself believe just for a little while that maybe, possibly, had actually loved her. That was on her. The stupidity, the weakness, the mistake Shed paid for in front of 300 people. But she was done paying. At 11:47 p.m., she walked into the basement records office using the master key she had kept hidden on a chain around her neck always, even during the wedding, even when she was crying at the altar. Sat down at the main computer, started digging. By 2:15 a.m., She had enough. 43 separate instances of fraud. Forged environmental impact reports. Bribed zoning board members, 3 of them. Payments traceable to Sebastian's father's offshore account. Fake historical preservation violations manufactured to justify demolition. A paper trail that led directly to the Sterling Ashworth conspiracy and that proved they'd been planning this long before Sebastian ever met her. She printed everything, photographed every screen, called the only person she trusted outside her grandfather's memory. Detective Marcus Thorne answered on the first ring. "Whitmore, I mean Rossi. I was hoping you'd call. I have the proof," she said. "Everything. 43 instances of fraud, going back 7 years. Conspiracy to commit eminent domain fraud, bribery of public officials, attempted theft of a historic landmark, and am done hiding. Am done playing small. Am going to walk into that reception tomorrow and take it all back." Thorne was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had a quality she had never heard from him before: respect, maybe, or anticipation, or just the satisfaction of a cop who had finally found the break he needed. "What time?" "Reception starts at 6 p.m. Everyone will be there. All the guests, the Sterlings, the Ashworths, the press, if they haven't left yet. Perfect audience. It'll be there with a warrant and a team. And Rossi? Yes? Make it dramatic. These bastards deserve to go down in flames." Izzy smiled. For the first time all day, it was a real smile. The reception was in full swing by the time she walked in at 6:03 p.m. The band was playing. The champagne was flowing. The 300 guests were either pretending the altar incident hadn't happened or actively gossiping about it with delight. Victoria was holding court in the center of the room, wearing the dress that should have been Izzy's, or rather, the dress that Victoria had ordered custom-made 3 sizes too small, just to be cruel, telling anyone who would listen about the poor little planner who couldn't hold on to a man. She didn't notice Izzy at first. Nobody did. Izzy was wearing her work clothes, still the black pantsuit, the scuffed flats, the hair in a messy ponytail with bobby pins sticking out odd angles. She looked like what she was a woman had been through hell today and hadn't had time to change. Then she climbed onto the stage where the head table was set, picked up the microphone, and tapped it twice. The sound cut through the room like a blade. The music stopped. The talking stopped. Every head turned toward her. "My name," she said, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the ballroom without benefit of amplification, "is Isabella Eleanor Rossi, granddaughter of Giovanni Rossi, sole surviving heir of the Rossi family trust, and the legal owner of every inch of this estate, including the land you're currently standing on, the wine in your glasses, and the roof over your heads." Victoria's champagne flute slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. Sebastian went pale. Actually pale, not the performative flush of a man caught doing something wrong, but the bone-deep white of someone who just realized had miscalculated catastrophically. "You started. Don't." Izzy's voice was calm, cold, the voice of a woman who had spent 3 years learning to be invisible and had decided that invisibility was overrated. "Don't speak. You've done enough damage. For 3 years. To me, to my grandfather's legacy, to this land." She opened the leather portfolio, laid out the deed, the fraud evidence, the paper trail. "This property belongs to me, has always belonged to my family. And according to the original deed, which, by the way, includes a clause that gives me absolute authority to evict anyone committing fraud on these premises, you, Sebastian, are fired. Victoria, you're trespassing. Your families are under investigation for crimes ranging from fraud to bribery to attempted theft of a national historic landmark. And Detective Thorne is outside with warrants for your arrest." The doors burst open. Thorne came in with his team, and the room erupted, not with applause this time, with chaos, with screaming, with Victoria trying to run and being caught by security, with Sebastian's father having a cardiac event minor, but satisfying and needing medical attention, with reporters pushing forward, cameras flashing, microphones thrust toward Izzy like weapons. And through it all, Izzy stood on that stage, calm, composed, the owner of everything these people had tried to take from her, the architect of her own rescue. She caught Gabriel's eye across the room. He was standing by the vineyard doors, still in his work clothes, still with hay in his hair, looking at her with an expression she finally understood the expression Shed misread as indifference for 3 years. It wasn't indifference. It was fear. Fear of ruining their friendship by saying something he couldn't unsay. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being just a winemaker to someone who seemed so far out of his league. She jumped down from the stage, walked toward him through the chaos, stopped in front of him, close enough to smell the grapes and earth and honest sweat. "You knew," she said quietly. "Didn't you?" He nodded, swallowed hard. "I knew about the plan to marry you for the land. I tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. You were so happy, and I couldn't. I couldn't be the one to break your heart. So I just watched and hated myself for it. You should have told me. I know." His voice was rough. "I'm sorry for everything, for not being brave enough, for letting you go through that alone." She reached out, took his hand. His fingers were rough with calluses from pruning shears, warm and real and grounding. "It's okay," she said. "We have a lot to fix. The vineyard, the reputation, the mess your family's made. But we can fix it together, if you want." His smile was the most beautiful thing Shed seen all day. More beautiful than the wedding Shed planned. More beautiful than the revenge Shed just executed. "I want," he said, "more than anything." They kissed for the first time in the middle of the chalice in the ballroom that belonged to her, surrounded by the ruins of the people who had tried to destroy them, with the vineyard visible through the open doors behind them, stretching green and alive and eternal under the starlight. It wasn't a perfect kiss. It tasted like salt from her tears and grape juice from his fingers and the champagne that someone had spilled on the floor nearby. It was messy and desperate and 3 years overdue. It was perfect. If you made it this fair, if you stuck with Izzy through betrayal and the revelation and the reversal and the slow burn romance that almost didn't happen because she was too busy protecting everyone else, then you're exactly the kind of person this community was built for. People who believe in second chances. People who understand that the best love stories aren't the ones that start perfectly, they're the ones where two broken people choose to heal each other. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this. Hit the like button if you cried when Gabriel apologized. I definitely did. And leave a comment. What was your favorite moment? The abandonment? The revelation? The apology? The kiss? It'll be reading every single comment. And it'll see you in the next story. Stay invisible no more.